Hello, and welcome to Sleepy Stories Space. You found your way to a quiet corner of the internet, a place where the universe opens not with noise or urgency, but with stillness and wonder. Here, we drift through the stars, the planets, and the mysteries beyond. We explore discoveries, questions, and the quiet beauty of the cosmos that stretches above us. Thank you for being here. If you find comfort in these journeys, I invite you to like this video. And if you'd like to return to more quiet explorations of the night sky, you can subscribe. Each story is an invitation to rest, to reflect, and to find serenity beneath the endless expanse of space. Tonight, your attention softens as a pale visitor brightens the horizon. You notice a faint mist in the dark, a little smudge of light that lengthens slowly into a tail that streams away from the sun. Breathe in with that soft brightening. Breathe out with the tail as it stretches across the night. Let shoulders loosen. Let jaw relax. Let the rhythm of your breath become steady and unhurried. Comets are ancient travelers. Their hearts are small and cold, made from water ice, frozen carbon dioxide, dust, rock, and complex carbon compounds that formed when the solar system was young. When sunlight reaches that frozen surface, the ice releases gas in gentle jets. Dust lifts with it and creates a wide, soft haze called a coma. Solar wind and radiation pressure draw that material out into long, delicate tails. One tail is made of dust that curves slightly along the comet's path. Another is made of ionized gas that always points directly away from the sun. You do not need to memorize anything. You only rest while hearing the outline of what they are. Let the mind grow quiet, the way a lake grows smooth after a breeze passes. Thoughts arrive and then drift away like grains of dust leaving the nucleus of a comet. Your breath becomes the quiet metronome of this story. In through the nose, gentle and cool. Out through the mouth, slow and warm. With each exhale, release a little more weight. With each inhale, allow a little more ease. These wanderers begin far beyond the planets, in regions where sunlight is faint and time feels unmeasured. Some live in the Kuiper belt beyond Neptune, a wide ring of icy bodies. Others rest in the distant Oort cloud, a spherical shell that surrounds the solar system like a whisper. From time to time, gravity from passing stars or the slow tides of the galaxy nudge a comet inward. The journey can last thousands of years. The coma blooms. A tail unfurls. People on Earth look up and feel a quiet bond with a visitor that left home before any of our stories began. While you listen, let your breath follow a simple pattern. In for 4. Hold for 2. Out for 6. Feel ribs loosen. Feel the surface beneath you hold your whole body without effort. Your neck is supported. Your face smooths. The small muscles around the eyes release. Thought slows to the pace of an orbit. There is nothing to finish. There is nothing to fix. Only the gentle light of a comet crossing the sky and the quiet comfort of knowing that the universe keeps steady time. When we speak about comets tonight, we will keep a soft pace. We will talk about where they formed, how they shine, why their tails stretch away from the sun, and how their material may have carried water and carbon compounds to the early Earth. We will lie back beneath meteor showers that arrive when our planet passes through old comet dust. We will visit the machines we have sent to greet them. We will accept change when a nucleus breaks into pieces and fades. And then we will let the traveler recede into the dark, carrying our calm with it. Let the breath lengthen once more. In, smooth and unforced. Out, slower than before. As the air drifts away, feel the weight of the day fall away as well. Thoughts that try to gather simply slide off like frost turning to vapor in sunlight. You are safe. You are supported. You are ready to drift through this story of the slow, bright messengers. Settle in and picture a time before planets had names. The newborn sun glowed within a broad disk of gas and dust. Near that glow, rocky worlds took shape from minerals that could withstand heat. Farther out, past a subtle boundary called the frost line, temperatures dropped low enough for water vapor and other gases to freeze. There, ice and dust clung together. Pebbles met pebbles and grew into larger bodies through countless quiet collisions. Some of these bodies became the cores of giant planets. Others stayed small. In that far country of thin light, the seeds of comets formed. Breathe in gently. Pause for a heartbeat. Breathe out longer than you breathed in. Let the timeline stretch in the mind, the way a path lengthens ahead of a slow walk. There is no rush to reach the end. Every step is part of the journey. Scientists see two great reservoirs that hold these icy seeds. One is the Kuiper Belt, a wide, flattened ring beginning just beyond Neptune. It holds dwarf planets and smaller bodies, leftovers from the disk that built the outer planets. The other is the Oort cloud, a far broader sphere that likely extends a quarter of the way to the nearest stars. The Oort cloud is a population so distant that no telescope can resolve individual members directly. Its presence is inferred from the long, steep paths of comets that fall inward from all directions. These two homes cradle billions of icy bodies, most of which will never come near the sun. A few are stirred by small gravitational nudges and begin long, graceful arcs toward the warmth that will light their tails. Take in a slow breath as the Kuiper Belt comes to mind. Let it be a quiet ring of pale worlds turning in near silence. Release the breath as you feel how wide it is. Even though we call it a belt, the space between objects is vast. There is room for stillness. There is room for rest. A comet's nucleus is modest in size. Many are smaller than a mountain. A few are only as large as a building or even a city block. Their surfaces are dark, often charcoal black, because carbon compounds coat the ice like soot. When spacecraft have visited, they have found ridges, pits, smooth plains, and cliffs cut from fragile material. Inside, water ice mixes with dust, tiny grains of silicates, and frozen gases such as carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide. There are complex organics as well, the kinds of carbon chains that form in cold interstellar clouds where starlight is faint. These compounds are not life, yet they are useful ingredients. The solar system carries them the way a river carries silt. Let your breath move like that slow river. In with ease, out with ease. Every exhale releases tension in the shoulders and the neck. Every inhale brings a sense of cool, steady light that settles at the center of the chest. How did these ingredients come together? In the disk around the early sun, microscopic particles collided gently and stuck through electrostatic forces. As clusters grew, gravity took over. The process is called accretion. It is not loud. It is not quick. It is a patient gathering. Bits of ice and dust touched, held, and became something slightly larger. When pieces grew large enough, they attracted more material through their own gravity. This took millions of years. The story of a comet is the story of small meetings that add up over time. Some seeds wandered near regions where giant planets were forming. The gravity of Jupiter and Saturn tugged at them. Those tugs scattered many outward, away from the disk and into distant orbits. A fraction of them became members of the Oort cloud. Others remained in the Kuiper Belt and kept their orbits in a calmer ring. The result was a landscape with two large reservoirs and a diversity of paths. Over the ages, tiny influences keep working. passing stars add a little pull. The slow tide of the Milky Way's gravity lifts and lowers orbits. A comet that has slept in the cold for eons can begin to drift inward because of a nudge so gentle it can barely be described. As you listen, feel your own body receive a helpful nudge toward rest. Inhale for 4, hold for 2. Exhale for 6. If thoughts arrive, note them lightly and let them go. They can circle like distant bodies and then move on. When a comet begins its inward journey, the path can be extremely long. Some return in short cycles of a few years or a few decades. These are called short-period comets, and many come from the Kuiper belt. Halley's comet is famous for returning about every 76 years. Others have periods that span thousands or even millions of years. These long-period comets likely come from the Oort cloud, and they approach the Sun only once in a span longer than any single human lifetime. Their paths are stretched ellipses that bring them close to the Sun and then carry them back to the far dark in a single arc. Picture the difference between these families, the way you might think about two kinds of breaths. A short, gentle cycle where air enters and leaves in a small loop. A long, slow cycle where the inhale fills the chest completely and the exhale empties it with quiet patience. One is a tidy orbit, the other is a long pilgrimage. Temperature is the quiet sculptor of a comet's appearance. Far from the Sun, the nucleus is a sealed body, with only a thin layer of dust shifting under starlight. As distance decreases, sunlight raises the surface temperature just enough for ices to sublimate. Sublimation is a direct transition from solid to gas. It requires no boiling. The nucleus releases vapor faintly at first, then more strongly as the comet approaches the Sun. Dust grains embedded in the ice lift with the gas and form the coma that surrounds the nucleus like a small atmosphere. From there, solar radiation pressure and the solar wind stretch this material into tails. The dust tail is broad and softly curved. The ion tail is narrow and straight, always directed away from the Sun, regardless of the comet's direction of travel. These are not flames, they are streams of tiny particles moving in a vacuum, lit by sunlight and by the energy of the solar wind. Breathe in as if you are filling the coma with a light mist. Breathe out as if you are letting the tails lengthen across the sky. Every exhale carries you deeper into comfort. Inside the nucleus, the material is not uniform. Layers can form as different ices condense at different temperatures. Some zones may be richer in carbon dioxide, others may contain more water ice. When sunlight reaches a pocket with volatile gas, a jet can burst from the surface like a small geyser. These jets can rotate with the nucleus and create spirals of material that drift outward. The entire body can respond to the push of a jet. Its rotation may change slightly. Its path can shift a little. This gentle push from outgassing is called a non-gravitational force. It is tiny compared to the pull of the Sun, yet it can produce subtle changes that astronomers measure carefully to predict a comet's motion. Let that be a lesson the body understands. Small, steady changes add up. A slight lengthening of the exhale quiets the system. A tiny softening of the jaw reduces strain everywhere. The simplest adjustments create a large effect over time. The chemical story of a comet links deep space to early Earth. In laboratory studies and with instruments flown on spacecraft, scientists have found complex organics on and around comets. Observations reveal molecules such as formaldehyde and hydrogen cyanide, which can join to form amino acid precursors in the right conditions. Missions have detected glycine, an amino acid, in material from cometary environments. These findings do not claim that life began inside a comet. They suggest that comets can carry useful components. When many small impacts delivered water and carbon compounds to the early Earth, our planet received a generous supply of the materials that chemistry can use. Feel how that thought lands without urgency. It is not a demand. It is a gentle note. The universe distributes ingredients. Worlds try possibilities. Your breath carries this idea in and lets it go out like a tide on a quiet shore. The surfaces of comet nuclei often look darker than asphalt because fine carbon dust covers the ice. That darkness absorbs heat and encourages more sublimation, which lifts more dust, which then can settle again in shaded areas. The surface evolves during each close pass, then rests in the cold for long spans. Over many cycles, some comets fade as volatile ices are spent. Others break into pieces during close approaches to the Sun or after gravitational encounters with planets. Fragmentation leaves a trail of debris along the orbit. Later, when Earth's path crosses that line of dust, the sky answers with a meteor shower. We will rest under those streaks in a later chapter. For now, note how a quiet change in one place gives rise to beauty somewhere else. Return attention to the breath. In for 4, hold for 2, out for 6. Notice the weight of the body supported without effort. Notice the room around you growing softer as your senses turn inward. The mind is not empty, it is clear. Thoughts arise and settle like grains of dust settling back to a surface after a jet subsides. The story of birth in the cold ends where the first light touches the nucleus. In that touch, ice releases vapor. Dust rises. A halo grows. The traveler that began as a simple cluster of grains in a dark ring beyond Neptune or in the farward shell of the Oort cloud becomes a pale beacon in our sky. It carries memory of the earliest days of the solar system. It carries water and carbon chains that speak of star-forged chemistry. It carries a reminder that grand things form from small meetings and patient time. Let your eyes grow heavy as the comet takes its first steps inward. With the next exhale, release the last traces of tension from the face, the neck, the shoulders. With the next inhale, gather a sense of ease and let it spread through the chest and down the arms. There is nothing you must hold up. Gravity and the surface beneath you will do that. You can rest and drift with this quiet messenger as it begins the long journey towards sunlight. Picture the visitor as a small, dark heart moving through space, not glowing on its own but brightening when sunlight reaches its fragile surface. As that light arrives, let your shoulders settle, the way dust settles back onto a quiet plain after a brief wind. The body follows the comet's rhythm. Light touches. Tension softens. A comet begins with a nucleus only a few kilometers wide, sometimes smaller, sometimes much larger. Spacecraft photographs reveal cliffs that look carved by absence rather than by tools, pits that resemble wells in powdery ground, and smooth regions where grains have drifted into place. The surface is darker than wet asphalt because carbon-rich dust coats the ice. As your mind traces that dark skin, let your eyes grow heavy as if shaded by that same dust. The shading is gentle and cool. The muscles around the eyes ease the way shadow eases glare. Inside that small world sits a mixture of water ice, frozen carbon dioxide, frozen carbon monoxide, silicate grains, and complex organic compounds formed in cold interstellar clouds before the sun existed. The interior is porous. Much of it is empty space, a structure more like a compressed snowbank than a solid stone. When you think of that hidden emptiness, allow space within your chest as well. The breath does not need to be deep. It needs to be unforced. Let it pass through like starlight through a thin veil. Some nuclei have two lobes joined together. Scientists call these shapes contact binaries. Two bodies approached very slowly long ago, touched and stayed. As you picture the seam where they meet, let your jaw rest in the same way, upper and lower teeth not pressed, simply touching the idea of closure without clenching. The mouth becomes a peaceful join, not a lock. Sunlight does not boil the ice. It frees vapor directly. Sublimation sends gas outward from near-surface ices. Dust rides with that gas and forms a halo around the nucleus. Astronomers call this halo the coma. It is not thick enough to breathe, yet it is large enough to be seen across space. As the coma expands in your mind's eye, allow your rib cage to widen by a thread. When the coma thins, let the rib cage narrow by a thread. You are not directing the breath. You are following the halo's slow swell and fade. From that halo, two distinct tails emerge under the sun's influence. The dust tail contains tiny grains that scatter light. Radiation pressure from sunlight nudges those grains, so the dust tail often curves gently along the comet's path. The ion tail is made from molecules that have lost electrons under ultraviolet light. The solar wind carries those ions straight away from the sun, so this tail points directly outward from the star, regardless of the comet's direction. As you sense the difference, let your body match it. With the thought of the curved dust tail, allow the spine to loosen in a soft arc against the surface supporting you. With the thought of the straight ion tail, let your exhale travel in a simple line from throat to belly and out, clear and uncomplicated. Occasionally an anti-tail appears, a slim spike that seems to point toward the sun. It forms from viewing geometry when broad sheets of dust align with our perspective. It is a reminder that appearances depend on where you stand. Let that reminder relax the forehead. If the day changed shape because of the angle you saw it from, that is all right. The comet grants permission to release the need to correct it now. Jets erupt when sunlight warms a patch that contains volatile gas. A vent opens. A stream of vapor and grains rushes outward. Because the nucleus rotates, a jet can paint a spiral through the coma like a thread unwinding from a spindle. That outward rush pushes back on the nucleus. The push is tiny, but real. It alters the spin very slightly and can shift the orbit by a trace. Let that be your guide. As the jet releases pressure, let your shoulders release pressure. As the nucleus adjusts its spin by the smallest fraction, let your body adjust by a fraction too, finding a position that asks a little less of your neck, a little less of your lower back. The change is small. The relief is noticeable. Chemistry gives the coma color. Sodium atoms can create a faint yellow beam. Ionized carbon monoxide glows blue in the ion tail. Carbon-bearing molecules add green and blue bands near the head. Water itself is hard to measure from Earth because our air holds water that confuses the signal. Astronomers watch for hydroxyl, which forms when water molecules are split by sunlight. From that, they infer how much water is streaming away. As you listen to these colors and signs, let your breath become equally modest, a signal rather than a spectacle. A simple rise and fall says enough. There is no need to prove anything with volume. Rotation gives each comet its own timing. Some turn in hours, others in days. A shift in sunlight moves the active patches and the jets change place. Over one slow turn, the sunlit face passes into shadow while another region brightens. Follow that turn by letting attention sweep lightly across your own surface. The sunlit side begins at the crown of the head and glides down to the brow, to the cheeks, to the throat, to the chest, to the belly, to the hips, to the knees, to the feet. Where light passes, muscles let go. Where darkness returns, the letting go continues. Nothing lifts to meet the light. The light arrives and the tissue softens on its own. The nucleus can slump when cliffs shed material. Pieces fall, leading fans and ridges across the plain. Dust that once flew forward can drift back and settle into smooth blankets that cover exhausted vents. Think of that settling dust when your tongue settles gently behind your upper front teeth. Nothing presses, nothing grips. The tongue lies down like grains on a quiet slope. Brightness does not increase steadily. A crack can open, an event can roar for a day, then fall quiet. The coma swells, then contracts. Observers call these changes outbursts. Others are tricks of geometry. When the sun sits behind the dust from our point of view, forward scattering turns the tail vivid and wide. Photographers plan for these angles when they can. You can let angles help you as well. If a tiny turn of the head to one side makes the throat easier, take that turn. If a small shift of the knee sets the hips at rest, allow it. The body finds favorable geometry, then hold still. Dust drifts behind the comet along its path. Over time, the trail thickens with grains of different sizes. Centuries later, Earth may pass through that slow plume, and the night answers with a meteor shower. The Perseids come from the dust of swift Tuttle. The Leonids come from Temple Tuttle. The sky writes those names with brief strokes of light. As the mind traces a stroke, let a warm ease trace the length of each arm from shoulder to fingertip. As a streak fades, let the fingers soften and remain still. You now hold the comet's blueprint in a calm way. A dark, fragile nucleus. A coma that breathes outward in sunlight. A dust tail that curves. An ion tail that points away from the sun. Jets that carve and push. Colors that hint at chemistry. Trails that later become showers. Keep that blueprint as a quiet diagram, the way a traveler keeps a map folded at the bottom of a bag. It is there when needed. It does not need attention every moment. Before the chapter ends, let the comet teach one more motion. Gas leaves the surface in a steady drift. Match that drift with a steady release in the body. On the next natural exhale, let the weight of the day lift the way grains rise from the nucleus. On the following inhale, let coolness settle the way shadow settles after a jet subsides. Continue only for a few easy breaths, keeping the story in view. You are not stepping away from the comet. You are moving with it. The traveler remains in front of you, halo soft, tails long, the small heart turning toward a greater light, and you are resting beside that motion with ease. Far beyond the planets, the visitor waits in cold silence. Some begin in the Kuiper belt, a wide ring beyond Neptune. Others sleep in the more distant Oort cloud, a shell that surrounds the solar system like a whisper. A small tug from a passing star, or a slow lift from the galaxy's tide, tilts a path by an amount so slight it would be invisible to the eye. That tiny change starts a fall toward the sun. As that fall begins, let your own release begin. The body does not drop. It settles, the way a snowflake settles through still air. Some begin in the Kuiper belt, a wide ring beyond Neptune. Others sleep in the more distant Oort cloud, a shell that surrounds the solar system like a whisper. A small tug from a passing star, or a slow lift from the galaxy's tide, tilts a path by an amount so slight it would be invisible to the eye. That tiny change starts a fall toward the sun. As that fall begins, let your own release begin. The body does not drop. It settles the way a snowflake settles through still air. The orbit is an elongated oval shaped by two distances. Perihelion is the closest point to the sun. Aphelion is the farthest. Some comets sweep close to the inner planets. Others never cross their roads. Eccentricity measures how stretched the oval is. Inclination tells how tilted the path is compared with the flat plane where most planets travel. While those words pass, let your breath become elliptical too, not by force, but by character. The inward part of the breath is brief, like a quick turn around the sun. The outward part is long, like the journey back to the dark. Keep it gentle. The numbers are not important. The shape is. Short-period comets return in years or decades. Many belong to the Jupiter family, their roots reshaped by meetings with that giant world. Halley-type comets have periods between 20 and 200 years, and often arrive on steep or retrograde paths. Long-period comets take far longer. Their cycles last thousands or millions of years, and they fall inward from all directions, which hints at a spherical reservoir. Let that spread in your thoughts. A ring near the planets, a deep shell beyond. As those homes take shape, let your upper back broaden, as if there were room for both pictures. That broadening asks muscles along the shoulder blades to soften. When the visitor crosses into the region where sunlight grows strong, activity awakens. The coma flowers. Tails unfurl. Outgassing creates tiny pushes that act for weeks or months. Those pushes are small compared with the sun's gravity, yet large enough to shift timing by hours across many orbits. Flight teams planning rendezvous paths account for those gentle accelerations. As you hear that, let your body account for gentle influences too. If the surface under you nudges one shoulder more than the other, slide a fraction of an inch and balance it. If a knee wishes to lean, support it with a pillow or the other leg. Small corrections early prevent strain later, the way navigators use minute course changes far from a target to arrive exactly on time. Close approaches to the sun do not always bring steady change. The nucleus can brighten suddenly when a crust splits and fresh ice vents. The glow can fade if dust blankets the active areas and insulates them. Some visitors break apart from heat, spin, or tidal stress. Fragments drift like beads along a thread that follows the orbit. Centuries later, those beads become a storm of meteors when Earth crosses that lane. While this story unfolds, let yourself accept that brightness in your own day can surge and sink without warning. In the quiet of this chapter, nothing more is needed than acceptance. The acceptance itself is relaxation. Let it spread from the throat to the chest, the way a tail widens from the head outward. Sungrazers come from families that pass near the sun. The Comet group is famous. Many members disintegrate during a single pass, leaving only dust to tell their stories. Spacecraft that watch the sun see small points rush inward, flare briefly, and vanish. As you consider that quick brilliance, let your next breath be a quiet flare of comfort. The inhale arrives, glows for a moment as warmth in the chest, and then the exhale carries the glow outward, not lost, simply shared with the rest of the body as muscles ease. Jupiter sculpts the roots of many comets. As a giant, it bends paths and sometimes captures bodies into shorter loops. Astronomers use a value called the Tisserand parameter relative to Jupiter to describe how a small body moves with respect to that planet. The math is subtle, yet the idea you need is soft. A large neighbor can guide a traveler into a safer, simpler route. If there is a large task in your life, let it play the role of Jupiter for a moment. Instead of pulling you in many directions, let its gravity gather smaller tasks into a single turn. While you hold that thought, the muscles at the base of the skull can let go, as if they were tiny objects released from a complicated path into a steady curve. Viewing makes a difference on Earth. A comet near the horizon competes with thicker air. One near the moon competes with glare. When the sun sits behind the dust from our angle, Forward scattering transforms the tail into a bright fan. Photographers look for such alignments. You can set your own alignment now. Small tilt of the chin to open the airway. Tiny roll of the shoulder to smooth the contact with the bed. Once aligned, stay still long enough for the body to respond. Stillness is not empty. It is a condition under which repair happens on its own. Meteor showers arrive when Earth crosses trails left by comets. The Perseids each August trace back to Swift. Tuttle. The Leonids in November trace back to Temple Tuttle, and sometimes burst into storms when we pass a dense clump. In those displays, grains the size of sand write swift lines that fade as quickly as a thought. Let one such line be your guide. From the crown of the head to the base of the spine, allow a single sweep of relaxation to pass once. Do not repeat it. Trust that one sweep is enough, the way one meteor is enough to remember an entire night. Observers name the two critical turning points of the orbit. Near perihelion, the comet is fast, luminous, and expressive. Near aphelion, it is slow, quiet, and unadorned. The body knows both states. If you feel lively, let that energy be the bright head near the sun, and let it settle naturally as the chapter proceeds. If you already feel quiet, let that quiet be aphelion itself. The visitor spends most of its existence there, untroubled, letting time pass without commentary. Space agencies plan careful meetings with comets. Giotto flew by Halley and showed that a dark nucleus hid within the glare. Stardust collected grains from a comet's coma and returned them to Earth for study. Deep Impact sent a small projectile into a nucleus to reveal interior material. Rosetta traveled with 67P for years, watching day and night seasons roll across its surface and listening to the way gases rose and fell with distance from the sun. As you hear those names, let a sense of companionship settle around you. Even in deep space, travelers arrive and keep company for a while. This chapter can keep you company in the same way, quietly, without asking anything in return. Eventually the visitor rounds the sun and begins to recede. Activity fades. The coma shrinks. The tails dissolve into space. Weeks pass, months pass. The nucleus returns to darkness where it will spend nearly all of its time, unchanged to any eye that looks from far away. Let that retreat be your closing movement. With the next gentle exhale, release whatever remains of the day that you do not need to carry outward. With the following calm inhale, take in only what supports you, the way the nucleus keeps only what it can hold in the cold. Settle into that steady state with the same patience comets show between visits. The long road inward is not a race, it is a lesson in timing. A tiny nudge begins a journey measured in ages. Small, steady forces shape the path. Brightness grows, then wanes. The traveler returns to quiet and waits. Let your body make the same choice now. Small ease adds to small ease until there is nothing left to do. Rest beside the orbit and let the sky be wide. The visitor draws nearer to the sun and the surface warms by small degrees. Nothing abrupt, no roar, only a change as steady as dawn crossing a field. Ices just beneath the crust meet that warmth and turn directly into gas. The skin of dust loosens. Vapor lifts. Grains rise with it and begin to drift. As this gentle release begins to form a halo, let your shoulders release in the same way. Not a drop, not a collapse, only a soft unfastening that follows the physics you are hearing. Deep inside the coma, the gas expands in every direction. Each molecule carries a little energy from the sunlight that freed it. Collisions between molecules spread that energy outward, thinning as distance grows. Close to the nucleus, speeds are modest. Farther out, the flow gathers order. Dust grains separate by size. Larger grains stay near the path like a trail of sand. Finer grains drift wide and bright. While this sorting occurs, let your thoughts sort themselves without effort. The heavy ones can stay near the center and rest. The fine ones can float outward and fade until they're only background glow. Radiation pressure is the quiet hand that moves the dust tail. Sunlight transfers momentum to each grain. The push is tiny, yet the travel time is long. Over many hours, then many days, the push draws the dust away from the head and shapes a broad curve. The curve is not random. It records the changing speed of the nucleus and the size of the grains. Photographs taken weeks apart show a fan that changes its sweep as the traveler turns the corner around the sun. As you sense that curve unfolding, allow your spine to follow a similar arc against the surface that holds you. Not a bend, only a soft yielding that matches the fan's patient geometry. Ion tails form in a different way. Ultraviolet light removes electrons from certain molecules in the coma. The solar wind, a stream of charged particles flowing outward from the sun, carries those ions along magnetic field lines. The ions glow at specific colors. Carbon monoxide ions often paint the tail in blue. Sodium can add a faint yellow beam. The whole structure points straight away from the sun because field lines and wind both lead outward. Think of this as a directional sigh. With the next exhale, let a clear line run from your throat down the center of your chest and out through the belly. The path of the air is your ion tail. The line stays honest and simple. Sometimes the ion tail disconnects. A knot of magnetized wind called a coronal mass ejection sweeps past and flips the field around the comet. The old tail is cut loose and a new one begins. To observers, the tail seems to snap and then regrow. The nucleus is unharmed. The process is part of the conversation between the sun and the small visitor. Let that teach a kind lesson. When strain accumulates, it is acceptable to let a whole length of tension drift away and start fresh. Let one long exhale carry that old thread out. Allow the next inhale to begin a new line that feels easy. Jets alter this picture by adding spirals and fans within the coma. As the nucleus rotates, a vent that faces sunlight becomes active. The jet paints a corkscrew into the halo. When the rotation brings that spot back into night, the jet quiets and the pattern fades. Another region takes its turn later. The combined effect is a living atmosphere that changes hour by hour. You can follow this rotation with a quiet sweep of attention. Start at the crown, move to the brow, down the cheeks, over the throat, across the chest, through the belly, along the hips, down both legs to the feet. That single sweep is your rotation. Where the sweep passes, tissues do what shadow and light do on the nucleus. They adjust without orders. Temperature controls which ices respond first. Far from the sun, carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide begin to sublimate while water remains solid. Closer in, water joins the release and activity rises quickly. Production rates can climb to tons of water per second for a large and lively comet. That number might sound loud. The experience is stillness. Gas leaves into a vacuum that yields easily. Think of a quiet spring under snow. The flow is real. The surface looks restful. Let your face take that look. The muscles along the jaw slacken. The tiny muscles near the eyes let go of their grip on the day. Brightness depends on distance, size, and geometry. When the sun, the comet, and the observer align so the dust scatters light forward, the tail flares into a wide fan. When the angle changes, the glow calms. Photographers study these angles the way sailors study winds. They time their views for evenings or mornings when the fan will open. You can set a small alignment of your own. Nudge the chin by a fraction to open the throat. Let the shoulders settle evenly so the chest is not twisted. Once the angles are kind, stay still. The stillness of good alignment does most of the work for you. Color offers clues that instruments can read. Spectrographs split the light and reveal the fingerprints of molecules and atoms within the coma. Hydroxyl betrays water. CN bands note the presence of certain carbon compounds. Sodium lines can stand out when grains release that element into the gas. These signatures do not rush. They arrive steadily as the instrument gathers photons over minutes of exposure. Your rest can mirror that patience. No single breath needs to carry all the calm you seek. A few minutes of gentle attention gather enough to make a difference. Sublimation also alters motion. Gas escaping from a vent acts like a tiny thruster. Over weeks, these small pushes add up and change the arrival time at perihelion by amounts that navigators can measure. Missions model these non-gravitational accelerations to stay near a nucleus safely. The lesson for the body is familiar now. Minor adjustments. Early keep the path true later. If the low back asks for a millimeter of shift, give it. If the knee wants a tuck, grant it. Course corrections at the scale of a thread produce peace at the scale of an hour. Some comets carry boulders on their surfaces, perched where a slope and a weak push have placed them. Gravity is faint on a small world, so a slow slide can move a stone from a cliff to a plain. The landscape changes without drama. Let your own posture settle in that same slow language. If a shoulder blade finds a better resting spot, let it glide into place, nothing forced. The new arrangement will hold. As perihelion approaches, the coma thickens, the tails lengthen, and the head grows brighter. Observers step outside and see a soft star crowned by haze. If the tail stretches across a large fraction of the sky, crowds gather and stories begin to form that children will hear later. If the display is modest, a few quiet watchers will remember it just as fondly. Your experience can be the modest kind. No spectacle is required. The simple knowledge that light is freeing ice, that dust is flowing, that plasma is writing a blue line away from the sun is enough. There are times when a surface seals. A crust builds from redeposited dust and sintered ice. Activity drops even as distance continues to shrink. The traveler dims instead of brightening. Then a crack opens and the coma blooms again. That irregular rhythm confuses prediction, yet it belongs to the nature of fragile things warmed by sunlight. Let your own rhythm be allowed to vary. If one breath wants to be shallow, let it be shallow. If the next wants a little depth, allow it. The body is responding honestly to its own day, the way a crusted patch responds to light. When the comet sweeps through perihelion, brightness often peaks. The dust tail flares and curves like a long sail caught by a steady breeze. The ion tail points straight outward, thin and purposeful. The nucleus rotates beneath this spectacle, a small heart turning steadily without rush. Close this section by following that turn. Count a single rotation at your own pace. 1 for the crown, 2 for the throat, 3 for the chest, 4 for the belly, 5 for the hips and legs. Then stop counting. Hold the stillness that follows as the comet begins to arc away from the sun, a little quieter, a little lighter, still carrying its faint, steady heart. Across centuries, certain visitors have drawn human attention with displays so serene and persistent that their names continue to drift through our stories. The path is always physics. The feeling is always quiet awe. Let these travelers move through your thoughts the way a tale moves through thin air, graceful and unhurried, each one carrying a small cue for peace. Halley's Comet returns on a cycle of about 76 years. It belongs to the family named after it because its path repeats within human memory. The same object that brightened medieval skies also greeted telescopes in the 20th century. Observers in 1910 saw a bright fan and a glowing head. In 1986, spacecraft resolved the dark nucleus hiding within the glare. Giotto revealed a surface blacker than coal with jets firing from sunlit patches. While that history unfolds, let your breath repeat at an interval that suits you. Not a strict count, a gentle return. In, out. And then again later, not because of pressure, but because cycles bring comfort. Hyakutake in 1996 passed close to Earth and showed a long, slender ion tail that reached far across the sky. Photographs captured delicate striations running along that blue beam, shaped by magnetic fields in the solar wind. As that narrow line extends across your inner view, let a single line of ease extend through your body from the base of the skull to the tailbone. One line only. After it forms, leave it alone, the way a photographer leaves a long exposure to gather light without interference. Hale-Bopp in 1997 stayed bright for many months. The nucleus was large. Activity remained high, even far from the sun. Dust tails and ion tails appeared together with subtle curves and colors. For many, the comet marked evenings on porches and late walks across fields. As you consider that long presence, take permission to stay in one resting position for longer than you usually do. The support beneath you will hold. The body will find its own micro-adjustments, the way a tail finds its curve. Neowise in 2020 arrived during a year when many people were looking for steadiness. It lifted from the dawn and later took position in evening skies with a golden dust tail that bent upward like a banner. Crowds spread out at safe distances and watched in shared silence. Cameras collected the arcs of cities below and the arc of the visitor above. Let that shared silence move through you. Nothing is demanded. A quiet presence is enough to steady a night. Comet West shone in 1976 with a bright, split tail after the nucleus fractured near perihelion. Pieces separated and each fragment released its own material, so the fan carried multiple rays. The display felt like a slow bloom across morning skies. That bloom can guide a small release for you now. If there is a tight place behind one shoulder, let it open like one of those rays, not a stretch, not a pull. A bloom that appears because a barrier stopped holding. Shoemaker. Levy 9 broke into a train of fragments that fell into Jupiter in 1994. The impacts carved dark scars into the giant's cloud tops and proved that small bodies can deliver real energy. The lesson reached Earth without alarm. Observers learned, governments built surveys, and watchfulness improved. Take the quiet lesson, not the fear. Prepared awareness eases minds. Your own prepared awareness can be simple. Notice the heaviest part of your body. Let gravity have it. Notice the lightest part. Let buoyancy lift it. Both sensations can exist together without struggle, the way Jupiter held both impact scars and calm belts at the same time. Some visitors give rise to showers so dependable that calendars carry their names. Swift. Tuttle feeds the Perseids each August. Temple. Tuttle feeds the Leonids each November, sometimes rising to storms when Earth meets dense streams of particles. Encke contributes to the Taurids, which move slowly and glow warmly. On those nights, people lie back and watch lines appear and vanish. If you are resting indoors, let your thoughts lie back as well. The ceiling can be your sky. The hint of movement behind your eyelids can be your meteor. Each passing trace says quietly that brief events can be complete in themselves. The great comet of 1811 lingered for months and coincided with a vintage that winemakers still recall. The coincidence is not cause, it is companionship, a reminder that sky and ground live their cycles side by side. The great comet of 1843 unfurled a tail long enough to cross a large slice of the sky. The great comet of 1882 glowed near the sun and survived for a time after its perilous sweep, possibly a member of the Quoits family of sun grazers. The great daylight comet of 1910 was bright enough to be seen near the sun at midday. Let these events pass like pages. You do not need to keep them. The feeling of companionship between sky and life is the page you keep. Rosetta's companion, Comet 67P, did not blaze for casual eyes, yet it offered a different kind of wonder. Instruments rode alongside for years, tasting gas, photographing cliffs, and timing the rise and fall of activity as sunlight moved across the surface. A small lander named Filey bounced and came to rest in shadow, then woke briefly to speak when light reached its panels. The story is gentle persistence rather than spectacle. You can take that tone now. If sleep does not arrive yet, remain in quiet. The act of remaining is enough. Small gains collect. Some comets promise much and then fade. Ison approached in 2013 with hopes of becoming a brilliant sight, then broke apart during its solar encounter and dissolved into a smear of dust. Lovejoy in 2011 survived a near solar pass and streaked away trailing luminous arcs captured by cameras on the International Space Station. McNaught in 2007 fanned out dramatically for southern observers with a tail that looked like the sweep of a giant brush. Every outcome belongs. Brilliance teaches wonder. Fading teaches acceptance. Survival teaches resilience. Choose the lesson that suits your evening and let it soften some part of you that asks to soften. Cultural stories echo across continents. In many traditions, comets were portents. Today, they are memories and invitations. Families remember waking children in the dark to step outside and look up together. Painters recall the curve of Hale Bopp as a shape worth carrying into canvas. Photographers remember the cold of tripods on wet grass. Astronomers remember spectra and rates, lifetimes and spins. Let your body remember a single thing from tonight. Perhaps the straightness of the ion tail. Perhaps the softness of the dust fan. Perhaps the patience of a nucleus that spends most of its life in quiet. Hold one image, only one, and let it become the mood of your muscles. Every name in this chapter is a path through time, a cycle closed and reopened, a return that linked grandparents, parents, and children under the same glow. Halley will come again. Other visitors will appear that no one has named yet. Surveys already watch the edges of the sky for the next newcomer. In the same spirit, you can watch the edge of your own awareness for the next small easing, a jaw that lets go, a shoulder that finds a kinder angle, a thought that loosens its grip on the day. When it appears, greet it and let it pass through to where it belongs. As this chapter settles, think of the sky as a quiet ledger where these names are written in pale ink. The letters are long tails. The periods are small nuclei that keep turning in darkness between visits. The ledger is not a demand. It is a reassurance that cycles continue. Close with a motion that matches that reassurance. Let one breath complete, then another, with no pressure to lengthen or shape it. You are part of the same patient record. The next traveler will arrive when it is ready. Your next chapter will arrive when you are ready. For now, stay with the afterglow, the way the night stays with a tail long after the head has slipped below the horizon. The names you just heard still glow softly in the mind. Halley, Hayakutake, Neowise. Each was a traveler that showed a face to earth for a season, then turned away. Behind those appearances lies another story, quieter than any bright tale. It is the story of ingredients carried through deep time, ice that holds memory, dust that holds chemistry, a small, dark nucleus that can lift more than light. It can lift possibility. Begin near the surface of a typical nucleus. Grain by grain, a crust covers pockets of water ice, carbon dioxide ice, and carbon monoxide ice. Mixed among the frozen material are silicate fragments and complex organics that formed in cold interstellar regions before the sun was born. As sunlight reaches a vent and freeze vapor, molecules fan out through the coma. Instruments see the signatures as thin lines in a spectrum. Hydroxyl tells that water is present. CN bands point to carbon-bearing species. Traces of formaldehyde, methanol, and hydrogen cyanide appear in measured ratios. While that subtle page of light is being read, allow the muscles along your temples to loosen, the way a sealed pocket loosens when warmth finds it. The release is small and accurate. It belongs to the story you are hearing. Water matters here not only as a component of a tale, but as a courier. Early Earth needed water at the surface to cool crust, to form oceans, to provide a stage for chemistry. Part of that water likely rose from the interior as volcanic steam and condensed. Part fell with asteroidal bodies rich in hydrated minerals. Part may have arrived with comets that left drops of frost in a very long rain. The evidence is not a single clue. It is a tapestry. Some comets show a deuterium to hydrogen ratio higher than Earth's oceans. Others are closer. Carbonaceous meteorites hold water bound to minerals that matches better still. The simplest conclusion is a blend. Several sources contributed. As that idea settles, let your breath do the same. Not an effort to deepen, only a blended rhythm, simple and steady, the way several streams meet and make one quiet current. In the coma, carbon compounds are not just simple gases. They include building blocks that, under the right energy and the right surfaces, can lead toward molecules used by living cells. Glycine, the simplest amino acid, has been detected in material related to comet dust. Aromatic rings and small organics have been catalogued by instruments that flew with 67P. None of these are cells. They are notes, a pantry of parts that a planet could use. When you hear the word pantry, think of a cool room with shelves that wait. No rush, no noise. The shelves hold what may be needed later. Offer your shoulders that same patience. They can set their weight on the surface beneath you and wait without strain. Long before planets finished forming, the solar nebula mixed material over great distances. Minerals that require high temperatures sit beside ices that form only in cold zones. Samples captured by stardust showed this blend inside tiny grains. The result is a nucleus that carries both the memory of a warm furnace and the quiet of a frozen cloud. That contrast can guide a gentle balance in your body now. A calm warmth at the center of the chest. A cool, still feeling at the forehead. Both sensations coexist without conflict, the way a single grain can hold clues to fire and frost at once. On early Earth, impacts from small bodies released heat, vaporized water locally, and scattered minerals. Pools gathered. Mud cracked. Minerals presented surfaces that could hold molecules in place long enough for reactions to proceed. Sunlight provided energy at the surface. Thermal vents provided energy in the deep ocean. Comets added to the supply of carbon and nitrogen-bearing species and added water in small deliveries. Picture the sky as a slow messenger that returns again and again, each time bringing a small parcel. With that picture, let your jaw unclench exactly as much as a parcel weighs in your hand. Not a drop, not a dramatic change. just enough to set something down. Complex organics on comet grains are thought to form when ultraviolet light and cosmic rays reshape simple ices in very cold conditions. Layer by layer, a dark coating develops that resembles soot in color and chalk dust in texture. When such grains lift into the coma and feel sunlight, some of that coating breaks apart into simpler pieces again. Chemistry cycles between building and unbuilding. Your ribs can follow that cycle gently as you hear it. On the next inhale, the thin muscles between them expand by a thread. On the next exhale, they return by a thread. The cycle does not need direction. It is already present, the way chemistry is already present in the coma as soon as sunlight arrives. The possibility that comets helped wet the planet and stocked it with certain carbon compounds changes how you might see a night sky. A tail is not only a stream of light. It is a reminder that the ingredients for rivers and rain and cell membranes and sugars and bases can travel in frozen form for millions of years, then release when sunlight calls. It turns a spectacle into a delivery. While that understanding takes shape, let your hands soften as if the fingers were the narrow tails of grains moving outward. The softening follows the flow and then rests. The deuterium to hydrogen ratio is a careful subject. Instruments measure it by looking for tiny differences in spectral lines. Some Jupiter family comets, thought to come from the Kuiper belt, show values closer to ocean water than the average of long-period comets, thought to come from the Oort cloud. Meteorites add more context by showing a range of waters bound into minerals. The pattern suggests that the inner system received water from several reservoirs. That is not a disappointment. It is a reassurance. Vital things often come from more than one source. Your comfort does too. A good position, a kind pace to the story, a room that is quiet enough, a body that knows how to release. Together they provide what one method alone could not. Those who study prebiotic chemistry note that amino acids can form in several environments. Photochemistry in ice, electrical energy across a gas, hydrothermal settings, impacts that briefly create high temperatures and pressures. Comets that drop fragments into oceans or lakes can add organics that supplement what Earth is already making. The planet then performs the long, patient steps that turn simple molecules into chains and rings that fold and store information. While you hear this patient ladder of steps, consider one ladder in your own posture. From the base of the spine to the crown, there is a sequence of small muscles that hold you. They can choose, one by one, to reduce their effort. Not everywhere at once. A sequence. Base softens. Middle follows. Crown settles. The ladder learns rest step by step. Rosetta's time with 67p added a new detail to the pantry. Instruments detected phosphorus and other elements that matter for DNA and membranes. They also recorded the daily rhythm of outgassing as sunlight moved across the surface. The nucleus was not a single uniform source. It had seasons and hours. The pantry opened and closed as the world turned. You can let your rest follow a similar rhythm. A gentle rise in ease as a part of you receives attention. A gentle plateau. A gentle decline as attention moves on. Nothing forced. A daily cycle written into a small body far from home, showing you how to relax where you are. Glycine is often mentioned because it is familiar. It is a simple amino acid that appears in many contexts. Its presence in cometary material says not that life rode inside the nucleus, but that the ingredients of simple proteins can be formed and carried in ice. The detail is heartening without exaggeration. The message is one of support, not of completion. When something supports you, you do not need to rush. Take one easy. Inhale while picturing the head of a comet as a dark pebble in front of a pale veil. Take one long exhale while picturing a single molecule drifting outward into that veil. The scene is quiet. and the body mirrors that quiet. The connection between showers and life may seem faint at first, yet it is part of this chapter. Those streaks are small pieces of a trail. Trails are proof that material is being given back to space. Some of that material eventually meets Earth. Most burns harmlessly in the upper air. A tiny fraction becomes part of the planet, not as a spectacle, but as a quiet addition to soil and sea. Small increments matter. You can welcome small increments of comfort in the same spirit. 1 millimeter of shift under a knee. 1 thread of slack where a shoulder meets a pillow. Each change is a grain. Enough grains make a beach. The last movement of this chapter returns to water. When the first global oceans collected, they reflected a sky that already held the marks of comets and meteors and dust. Blue surface, white cloud, dark land growing from the crust. It is possible that a portion of that water once slept in the Kuiper belt or the Oort cloud, then travelled inward and released from a nucleus no larger than a mountain. If a thought like that brings a wide feeling to your chest, keep the feeling and allow the thought to float away. The feeling is what the body uses. The thought can return later if needed. The visitor's gifts do not end at perihelion. Each close pass leaves a trail behind. Grains of many sizes drift along the path, spread by light pressure and gravity into a ribbon that circles the sun. Earth crosses some of these ribbons every year. When that happens, the sky answers with lines of light. You can feel those lines as motions in your body without leaving the story. Each streak has a beginning, a brief glow, and a fade. Each small relaxation you invite can follow the same shape. Begin with the Perseids. Their parent is Swift Tuttle, a large comet that travels a long, elongated path. Its dust stream intersects Earth in August. Radiant near Perseus. Streaks swift and clean. Many nights offer a handful of trails. Peak nights offer dozens in an hour. Observers who lie back on summer hills see lines that start high and slide across half the dome. The speed is part of the poetry. As you think of that speed, allow a single smooth release to pass from forehead to jaw. Not fast, not slow, only smooth. The release is the streak. The face is the sky. Turn to the Leonids. Their parent is Temple Tuttle. November brings these lines from a radiant in Leo. Most years are quiet, with delicately drawn paths across cold air. Some returns, when Earth meets dense knots that were shed in past centuries, produce storms. Thousands per hour have been recorded. Lines appear everywhere at once. On such nights, people whisper that the sky seems to fall upward. The lesson is not noise, it is timing. Quiet years make the rare surge even more graceful. Your system can trust its timing too. Tonight may be a quiet year. If a surge of comfort arrives, accept it as a gift from a dense filament in your own trail. The Geminids are different in origin. Their radiance sits in Gemini each December, and their parent body is 3200 Phaethon, an active asteroid that sheds dust as it nears the Sun. Geminid meteors move more slowly than Perseids, and many show a warm tint. On still winter nights, their pace can feel like a calm conversation. If that feeling suits you, let your next exhale be rounded and complete, as if it were a Geminid head that glows a touch longer before fading. Other annual displays weave through the calendar. The Quadrantids in January, sharp and brief. The Lyrids in April, tied to Thatcher. The Orionids in October, linked to Halley's Trail, faint echoes of the famous visitor. Each stream is a reminder that comets carry material outward, and that Earth meets those lanes as faithfully as a clock. While those names pass, let your shoulder blades rest as if settling into their own lane. There is no need to push them into position. The lane exists. Gravity and the surface beneath you guide them into place. What happens at the top of the atmosphere is simple and elegant. A grain the size of a seed meets air at high speed. The air in front of it compresses. Compression heats the gas. The grain ablates. The column of heated air glows. Often the grain is completely gone by the time the light fades. Sometimes a persistent train remains, a luminous ribbon that twists for minutes. Rarer still, a larger fragment produces a fireball. In all of these cases, the upper air does most of the work. Earth protects while displaying beauty. As you hear that, let the surface beneath you do the work for your body. Protection and display at once. Your posture can be the calm platform while the story writes its lines. Radiants are useful guides. A radiant is not a source in the sky, yet when you trace streaks backward they seem to meet there. That is geometry. You can give your body a radiant now. Choose a small center, perhaps the small hollow at the base of the throat. Let mild softenings in shoulders, chest, jaw, and the back of the neck appear to point toward that center. No movement needed after that. Noticing is the act. The geometry builds a map of ease without pulling you away from comets. Moonlight changes the scene. A bright moon washes out fainter meteors and leaves only the stronger lines. Photographers plan around this. They wait for hours when the moon sets, or choose angles that keep the moon out of the frame. You can plan without moving by letting bright thoughts set behind a mental horizon for now. If a bright thought refuses, you can simply keep it out of the frame. Attend to the quieter parts of the story. Swift, Tuttle, Temple, Tuttle, Phaethon. Trails that cross our path because the solar system has memory. The shape of a trail is not constant. Grains of different sizes respond differently to sunlight. Larger grains stay closer to the orbit. Finer grains spread outward. A planet can disturb the stream, building filaments that Earth may cross centuries later. Astronomers use models that layer these filaments by year of release. Forecasts improve, yet surprises remain. Some displays arrive stronger than predicted. Some fade. Accepting that uncertainty is part of skywatching, it can be part of your rest too. If comfort arrives strongly, welcome it. If it stays modest, welcome the modesty. Both count as success. When a fireball streaks across the sky, observers often feel it as a presence. The path is bright white, then green, sometimes with fragments that spark along the way. The physics is a larger mass surviving deeper into the air. The feeling is a single clear moment that needs no addition. You can grant yourself such a moment now. One clear inhale that feels clean in the chest. One settled exhale that leaves quiet behind. Then return to whatever rhythm your body was already using. Meteorites rarely result from comet streams because the particles are fragile. When stones do reach the ground, they often come from asteroids. Even so, comet grains touch us by writing light. Children lying on blankets point and call. Older watchers step outside for a few minutes and carry a single white line back indoors as if it were a souvenir. If a favorite memory arises while you hear this, keep the feeling and let the picture fade. The feeling is the souvenir. It provides the same steadying effect. The vantage of other worlds gives perspective. On the moon, where no air diffuses light, impacts cut crisp craters and leave them to darken slowly over ages. On Mars, thin air allows more small pieces to strike the ground. On Earth, the thick blanket above us protects and performs at once. You are beneath that blanket now. The protection is working while you listen. The performance is this story that continues at a measured pace until your body begins to follow it into stillness. Observers who photograph showers use wide lenses and long exposures. They include a tree or a cliff or a calm lake in the foreground, so that the sky's motion has context. Your rest can adopt the same idea. Include a stable landmark inside your attention, the weight of your heels, the contact under your lower back, the soft seal of your lips. Leave that landmark in the frame while the rest of your system watches the moving parts grow quiet. Context brings ease without effort. Streams age. After many returns, a comet can release less material. The trail thins. The display weakens. Another comet's lane becomes the headliner for a while. This is not a loss. It is rotation. The sky turns the page and offers a new script while keeping the old ones in the archive. If one relaxation method feels thin tonight, rotate to another that is still rich. A very small shift of the jaw. A kind angle for a shoulder. A steadying of the breath, only enough to feel smooth at the edges. The archive of methods is yours. Close encounters between Earth and dense filaments are charted carefully. When predictions show a strong crossing, communities gather under dark skies to watch. People bring chairs and thermoses. Neighbors who do not speak during the day share quiet in the night. The connection is simple. Everyone looks in the same direction. If this chapter gives you that feeling, keep it. You are looking in the same direction as countless others have done. Upward for them. Inward for you. The direction is shared. A ribbon of dust that was shed during a close solar pass long ago hangs along the orbit like a slender road. Earth meets the road cleanly. The upper air glows line by line as grains give their light and vanish. Those lines echo across fields, cities, deserts, and seas. They write over rooftops and quiet hills. Match one of those lines with one simple softening that you allow to complete on its own. Perhaps the base of the tongue settles. Perhaps the muscles beside the spine become less busy. The streak finishes. The sky returns to black. The body holds the afterglow. The traveler moves on and leaves the next part of the story ready for when you turn the page. The visitor is small, dark, and fragile, yet we have met it in person. Those meetings begin years before a camera ever sees the nucleus. A spacecraft leaves Earth on a path that uses careful angles and patient gravity assists. The craft loops by planets to borrow speed, then trims velocity with brief thruster pulses. Navigation teams practice a quiet art. They measure the star field, compare it with the craft's camera views, and mark tiny differences between where a target should be and where it is. Each correction is gentle. As that work settles the trajectory into a clean curve, let your own posture settle into a clean curve as well. Not a bend, only the kind of ease a line finds when it is drawn without hurry. Halley's return in 1986 became a gathering place for many probes. Japan sent Suisei and Sakigake to study the solar wind and to test long deep space operations. The Soviet Vega pair flew close and revealed a rough black surface through curtains of dust. Then Europe's Giotto passed nearer still and showed the nucleus itself as a charcoal core with bright geysers where sunlight struck. The scene was dramatic, yet the craft behaved with quiet discipline. It held attitude with reaction wheels, let dust shields take the peppering, and sent back images that proved a dark body hid inside the glow. While that view forms, let your breath hold its own quiet discipline. In, steady. Out, steady. The steadiness is the shield that lets the story arrive without strain. A decade later, a different approach reached out not only to look, but to collect. NASA's Stardust crossed the path of Comet Wild 2 and took grains from the coma into a block of aerogel. The gel was so light that it stopped high-speed particles without melting them. The sample capsule re-entered Earth's air and parachuted to the desert, where scientists opened it and found tiny pieces of early solar system history. Minerals that form in high heat lay beside materials that form in cold. The finding told of mixing across great distances when the sun and planets were young. While that blend settles in your thoughts, blend a small ease into the muscles of the jaw by letting the back teeth separate a paper's width. The jaw becomes the aerogel, catching and holding less effort. Deep Space One, a technology mission, met Comet Borrelly in 2001 and returned close views of a long knotted nucleus with bright vents. A few years later, Deep Impact approached Comet Tempel 1 with a special plan. The main craft released a small impactor that strut the surface to expose fresh interior material. Cameras watched a plume of dust rise and spread, turning the head into a soft fan. Weeks and months later, investigators sifted through spectra of the plume to learn about ices and organics. The act sounds forceful, yet the tone is still careful. The main craft kept a safe distance and treated the aftermath like a weather system to be studied as it developed. Let the body take the careful side of that story. If a place inside you feels like a compacted surface, show it sunlight by giving it 1 degree of slack. Then step back and let the change spread on its own. Stardust later flew past Tempel 1 again to photograph the crater that Deep Impact carved. The revisit showed a depression softened by material settling back, with subtle differences in the terrain that recorded seasons of activity. The lesson is that a single meeting can be revisited and read with new light. If there is a place where you already felt a small ease earlier in this session, revisit it now. Do not work it, only notice that it is still easy. The noticing is the second pass that confirms the first. Then came a companion that stayed. Rosetta reached Comet 67P after a long cruise that looped past Earth and Mars to gather speed. The craft matched the nucleus and eased into a slow dance around it, shaping orbits that looked like triangles and arcs rather than circles because of the odd gravity field of a two-lobed body. Cameras mapped cliffs and smooth basins. Spectrometers tasted gases that rose and fell with the sun's angle. Dust counters clicked softly as grains touched sensors. In that long campaign, a small lander named Philly dropped toward the surface. Harpoons meant to anchor it did not fire. Philly touched down, bounced in the low gravity, touched again, and came to rest in a shaded nook. For a time it worked in the half-light and sent back close looks at a landscape made of crumbly ice and dust. Later, when sunlight reached its panels, it woke briefly to speak once more. As that bounce and settling replay in your thoughts, allow one small bounce of tension to leave your shoulders. First contact, a rise, a gentle second contact, and then a stable rest. Rosetta's long watch became a record of seasons written in vapor. As the comet moved toward the sun, production of water rose. Jets carved pits and enlarged old ones. As distance grew again, activity declined and the halo thinned. Instruments measured gases and found many familiar species. Water, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, methanol, ammonia, hydrogen sulfide. Some were sharp, some were faint. The rhythm of their release matched sunlight like a clock. Let your own rhythm match in only the broadest sense. When the scene warms, exhale with the idea of release. When the scene cools, allow the next inhale to arrive with the idea of return. Ideas are enough. The breath can stay small. There were other close meetings. Ice, once called IS-E3, was redirected in 1985 to pass through the tail of comet Giacobini-Zinner, becoming the first craft to sample the cometary plasma. The Epoch Psi extended mission used the Deep Impact spacecraft to visit Harky 2 in 2010 and found bright, thin jets of carbon dioxide lofting chunks of ice the size of bowling balls. Those pieces traced slow arcs near the nucleus like snow in still air. The craft kept station with precise thruster taps while instruments watched. Your body can keep station the same way. If a minor twitch wants to appear, let it be a thruster tap that brings you closer to stillness rather than farther from it. One correction, then quiet. Meeting a comet requires respect for dust. Designers protect optics with covers that open late. They give the craft a Whipple shield, a sacrificial bumper that crumbles when a grain hits, spreading the impact over a wider area before it reaches the main wall. Trajectories are planned to avoid the densest regions of the coma whenever possible. The care is practical and calm. It lets fragile instruments approach a fragile target and leave with the story intact. Let that kind of care be your cue for the last part of this chapter. Place a soft cover over effort by deciding that nothing in your posture needs to work hard. The cover is a thought that spreads impact and keeps strain from reaching deeper tissues. With that protection in place, the craft of your attention can see clearly, take what it needs, and drift on. When each mission ends, a set of memories remains. Giotto's dark core, Stardust's captured grains, Deep Impact's bright plume, Harty 2's carbon dioxide snow, Rosetta's long record of days and seasons, and Filey's quiet nudge into shade. These memories are not loud, they are steady. They say that the ancient stones and ices can be approached, studied and understood while keeping a gentle pace. As this chapter closes, hold a final pairing. A nucleus rotates, always at the same measured period. Your body rests, always trending toward ease when given time. Let the rotation be your metronome for silence. The instruments are off now. The picture is saved. The traveler continues on its path. A comet is a lesson in cycles. It approaches, releases, and retreats. It brightens, fades, and rests. Surfaces slump, pits widen, crusts form and then crack. None of these changes ask for noise. They arrive and pass with the same patience you have felt in previous chapters. Let each change in this story guide a small change in you, and let each return guide a small return to stillness. Activity near the sun begins with sublimation. Gas lifts dust and the halo grows. As jets switch on and off with rotation and sunlight, some regions are carved into circular pits that deepen slowly. Others build smooth plains from falling grains. Over several passes, a nucleus can lose meters of material. The shape evolves from angular to rounded, from crisp edges to softened ones. As that softening appears in the mind, let the edges inside your face soften too. The brow slackens. The corners of the mouth release. The shift is a slow erosion of effort, not a drop. Brightness does not track distance alone. Outbursts can punctuate the trend. A blocked vent can open and release a burst of gas that carries extra dust into the coma. The head grows larger for days, then calms. Observers watch the light curve step upward and then sit back down. If your thoughts rise briefly with a memory or a plan, let them behave like that light curve. Up for a moment, then a steady return to a level that suits rest. Some comets fracture. Stress accumulates from tides near a planet or from spin that builds under the push of jets. A thin world with low gravity can reach a point where a lobe pulls away. The result is a string of pieces that share nearly the same path. Astronomers recorded this in 1993 when Shoemaker-Levy 9, broken by Jupiter's tides, arrived as a train of fragments that fell into the giant's cloud tops one after another. Later, 73p Schwarzmann-Wachmann 3, split into dozens of pieces and sprinkled bright knots across its orbit. In the present story, fragmentation is not a crisis. It is a release of strain that has built for many years. If there is a place in you that has held a shape too tightly, allow a tiny loosening. Not a break. A letting go that creates several smaller loads instead of one large one. Sungrazers live at the extreme. Families like the Kreutz group come in close and often do not survive. Heat and tidal forces destroy the nucleus, leaving a fan of dust that spreads along the orbit. For a day or a week, the sky gains a brilliant blade, then the visitor is gone. That loss still gives something back. The dust becomes a lane that Earth may cross in a future century. Your body can take the same gift from release. If a pattern of effort ends tonight, what remains is a path that makes the next rest easier. Spin state changes are part of the story. Outgassing applies torque. Rotation speeds up or slows down as jets act on the irregular shape. If a nucleus spins faster than its fragile materials can support, material can slide downslope or lift away. Some small comets are reshaped by this effect. The lesson for you is gentle. Let turning speed in your thoughts match what your muscles can support. If thought begins to whirl, widen your awareness to include the stable contact under you. The widening is a friction that slows the spin without effort. Dormancy is another end state. After many passes, volatile ices near the surface can be depleted or sealed beneath crusts. Activity drops so low that the body looks like a dark asteroid. It keeps its orbit and its origin, but shows little sign of coma or tail. Surveys find such objects by their paths and colors and classify them as dormant or extinct comets. Even dormancy is linked to renewal. A small impact, a deep crack, or slow fracturing can expose fresh ice, and activity can return for a time. When you hear that, allow yourself the idea that quiet periods in you are not failures. They are seasons. Ease can return when a small opening appears. When a nucleus breaks apart, its pieces do more than drift. They seed meteor streams. They thicken trails that already exist. In rare cases, they increase the chance of a storm when Earth crosses a dense clump. The Leonids in past centuries have shown this with displays that people still recount. Renewal arrives as light across the upper air. Tie that to a single clean line of ease that you let cross one region of your body from one side to the other. The line appears, moves, and fades. You keep the afterglow. Surfaces change in quieter ways as well. Boulders shift in low gravity when jets shake the ground. Fine grains creep downhill over many hours. Frost forms each night near the surface and sublimates again after sunrise. Rosetta saw patterns like wind streaks and dunes, created not by air but by falling particles and gas flows. The daily cycle is an artist with a soft brush. Let that same brush pass once across the muscles at the base of your skull. One pass only. After the pass, leave the region alone. In stillness, it will take the shape it prefers. The brightness of a tail can grow when forward scattering aligns dust and sunlight with our line of sight. It can fall away when geometry changes. Photographers read these alignments like tides. They wait for nights when the phase angle favors shine. Your system can read alignment too. If the story aligns with a posture that makes rest easier, keep that posture. If a very small change would improve the angle, take it. Then stop adjusting. The stillness after a good alignment is where restoration happens. Change is not always outward. Chemistry changes too. Organic coatings are rearranged by sunlight as grains travel through the coma. Molecules break and reform. The glow near the head shifts in color as certain species rise and fall with distance. Instruments record those shifts as lines that brighten and dim like notes in slow music. While that music plays, let one slow note move through your chest. It begins at the collarbones, deepens over the sternum, and fades near the belly. The note is only a feeling of weight that arrives and goes. No sound is needed. There are cycles within cycles. The orbit brings long seasons of activity and rest. Rotation brings day and night to vents, turning jets on and off. Outbursts add brief emphasis. Fragmentation changes the cast. Dormancy sets a pause. Renewal returns in a new form. The overall path continues around the sun, and the sun continues around the galaxy. You can hold only one cycle and receive enough. Choose the short one, day and night within a single turn, or choose the long one, approach and retreat over months. As you choose, let your breath choose its own length. The body picks the cycle it can keep without effort. Acceptance is the final skill here. Astronomers who watch comets learn to accept surprises. A comet brightens or fades in ways that models did not expect. A nucleus splits sooner than planned. A tail sharpens when a solar wind change passes by. The watchers update their notes and keep looking up. Take that posture. If your rest tonight takes a different shape from last night, accept the shape you have. The update is your kindness toward yourself. Looking up is your willingness to stay with the story. Renewal appears in human memory too. People who watched Hale Bopp in 1997 speak softly about that season when evenings carried a pale fan. Those who saw Nowise in 2020 recall a banner that felt steady during a difficult year. Children who were lifted to see Hyakutake remember a blue beam spread by a dark wind. Each memory opens the door to the next night. The sky will offer a visitor. Let one good memory of ease open the door to your next easy breath. After that breath, stop searching for more. The path will bring the next one on its own. The nucleus has swung past perihelion. The halo thins. The tails fade. A crust sets. The traveler turns its night side to the sun and keeps moving toward the deep where it rests for most of its life. You can turn the night side of effort toward the story now. With the next exhale, let effort become a crust that protects rather than a wall that resists. With the following inhale, keep only what you need. The cycle has completed one more loop. The comet is still itself. You are still yourself. Both are quieter than before. Night settles over the sky you have been carrying in your thoughts. The last visitors have drifted outward, but new ones are already on their way. Some are faint, still far beyond Neptune. Some are hidden in the glare of morning or evening. Some will be first seen by wide surveys that sweep the sky again and again with steady rhythm. The search itself is a lullaby of repetition. Telescopes collect small points, compare them with last night's points, and notice what has moved. While that patient scanning proceeds, let your shoulders move toward the same patience. They do not need to drop. They only need to match the telescope's steadiness and stay where comfort is easiest. Future watchers will rely on instruments designed to notice change. Surveys on high mountains will map the southern sky night after night, recording faint motion that reveals a comet long before it grows a tail. Spacecraft in solar orbit will look in infrared light for dark, cold bodies that reflect little visible light but glow gently with their own warmth. These systems find near-Earth asteroids, and they find comets too. The principle is simple and kind. Look often. Compare carefully. When something shifts, pay attention. You can use the same principle here. Notice one small shift toward ease in your body. Pay attention to it for a moment. Then let attention return to the story while the ease remains. One mission now in preparation has a special role. It will wait in a stable region of space, holding a quiet orbit while it watches for a worthy target. When a fresh comet is found on its first inward journey, or when an interstellar visitor appears, the craft will depart and meet the traveler far from the Sun. The plan includes smaller probes that can separate and see the nucleus from different angles, studying its gas and dust without crowding it. The waiting posture is part of the mission. The craft is poised but calm for years, then moves when the moment is right. Let that posture guide your breath. Rest for several natural breaths without shaping them. When the next moment that asks for a fuller exhale arrives, let it happen, then return to quiet waiting. Remote observatories will continue to play their part. A large infrared telescope in space can study water and carbon compounds in the coma when the nucleus is still far out. A powerful optical and infrared telescope can take spectra that show organics, ice, and dust in exquisite detail. These measurements reveal temperature, production rates, and the balance among gases as sunlight grows stronger. The light that left the comet hours ago arrives as a thin stream of photons and is sorted into a page of lines. Think of your rest working the same way. A thin stream of small comforts arrives. Your system sorts them and uses what it needs without rush. Sample return remains a quiet dream for the years ahead. One mission carried dust home already in aerogel, grains that told of mixing between hot inner regions and cold outer regions in the young solar system. The next step that many scientists hope for is a true core sample gathered from a nucleus and returned still cold, so that ices are preserved and gases are not lost. That work is difficult. It asks for anchoring in weak gravity, drilling without shaking a fragile surface, sealing material at cryogenic temperatures, and bringing it home unopened. The challenge is precisely why the idea will not go away. The knowledge locked in those ices would be a clear record of early chemistry. While that possibility rests in the future, let your jaw rest in the present. Keep it sealed only as likely as a sample vial should be sealed, secure without strain. Interstellar visitors may appear again. 2 have already passed through the inner solar system in recent years. One rocky, one a comet that released gas as it approached the Sun. They traveled on paths that will never close into loops. The next such visitor may be met by a fast mission that can pivot quickly from its waiting place. If that meeting happens, it will teach us how other planetary systems build small bodies. Unknown chemistry may appear. Unknown textures may be mapped. The tone will remain gentle. Approach with respect. Sample if it is safe. Learn, then let go. A meeting like that can guide a feeling here. Let your body approach the edge of sleep with respect. If it is safe to go farther, let yourself go. If not yet, keep company a little longer and learn how tonight's ease behaves. Beyond science, there is purpose tied to exploration. Water ice in a comet is not only a clue to origins. In concept studies, it is also a resource. Ice can be melted into water for crews. It can be separated into oxygen to breathe and hydrogen to burn. It can be moved to create shielding against radiation. None of this asks you to picture a mining scene. It asks only for the idea that a small body can be a way station for a larger journey. Let that idea be the size of a pebble in your thoughts, small and useful. If a part of you is traveling tonight from wakefulness toward sleep, the pebble is a resting spot partway along the route. Planetary defense is another quiet thread. Teams track comets with the same care they give to asteroids. Long-period comets can be difficult because they may be found late and move quickly. Early detection is the calm answer. Surveys widen their reach, share data across countries, and refine orbits until uncertainties shrink. Preparedness in this field is not fear. It is a form of steady housekeeping. Let your own preparedness be that gentle. The blanket is where you want it. The lights are how you like them. The position of your body asks little. You are ready for rest in the same way watchers are ready for the next messenger. Education and shared looking will continue to shape tomorrow's nights. New visitors will arrive. Teachers will bring classes outside before dawn. Parents will wake children and step into chilled air to point out a pale fan. Photographers will set tripods by lakes and deserts. Amateur observers will contribute positions that refine orbits. The community's heartbeat is slow and reliable. You are part of it simply by listening and allowing your own heartbeat to slow and steady as well. What will we learn next? The details will be surprises. Perhaps a new chain of molecules in a coma will tell how organics form in deep cold. Perhaps a sample will hold trapped gases that fix the timing of early solar events. Perhaps an intercepted interstellar visitor will show a chemistry that our models did not predict. The surprises will arrive at the same pace as always. A small shift in a star field here. A new point there. A tiny brightening that signals activity. The story advances in little steps. Your rest does too. Little steps until sleep is simply the next line. The last part of tomorrow's chapter belongs to you. There will be a night when a new comet clears the horizon. The dust tail will bend toward the west. The ion tail will carve a straight stroke away from the sun. You may be on a balcony, a porch, a hill, or near a window. The display will be quiet and long. When that night arrives, this story will come back to you, not as a list, but as a feeling. The feeling will make muscles answer with their own long tail of release. That is the point of looking up. The sky connects learning with calm and asks for nothing more than your company. Hold the simplest image. A small heart of ice and dust turns in sunlight. Gas blooms. A faint veil grows. Tails draw lines that teach patience. Your chest answers with patience. The visitor keeps its path. You keep yours toward sleep. The traveler that began in the cold has rounded the sun and is gliding outward again. The coma has thinned. The tails have faded until they are little more than a suggestion at the edge of sight. The nucleus is dark, patient, and unchanged in its quiet purpose. It keeps turning. It keeps the memory of sunlight inside the first few layers of its surface. Most of the orbit will be night. Night is what it knows best. As that long night begins, let your room become a little more like that space. Not silent in a forced way. Silent in the way of a field at dusk, where sound is present, but does not ask for attention. Your body enters that field and chooses the softest ground. We have walked with the visitor from its birthplace in the cold to the warmth where gas flows, through the anatomy of tails and jets, past names that still glow gently in memory, into the chemistry that may have helped water and organics reach Earth, under showers that write lines above our rooftops, alongside the machines that flew out to greet a nucleus, and through the changes of outbursts, breakups, and returns. We have looked ahead to missions that will wait in quiet and then move with purpose. The facts are firm and kind. They do not press. They rest well beside a closing pair of breaths. Let one breath follow the comet's swing through perihelion. The inhale is the approach, steady and brightening. The exhale is the release, long and easy. Then let the next breath be the long outward leg where little changes. The chest moves only enough to keep comfort. The body accepts that most of the orbit is this, a wide glide. Nothing is missing. The long stretch is the design. If a thought tries to lift its head, offer it the simple picture of a tail that is no longer lit by the sun. The grains that made it are still there, drifting along the orbit, but they show no glow now. The thought can join those grains and drift without brightness until morning. What stays lit is the small heart at the center of your awareness, the nucleus of your rest. It spins at a set period that you do not control. You do not need to. The spin will keep whether you watch or sleep. Instruments are quiet now. Giotto's frames are archived. Rosetta's dust counters are still. The sample return capsule that fell through desert air has been opened and studied. The numbers and spectra sit on shelves and servers where they will be read again by new sets of eyes. The sky keeps its timetable without checking those files. It is enough to have learned, and it is enough to stop learning for the night. Set down the part of the day that was about tasks and reach for nothing. The reaching was the day's work. The setting down is tonight's. A comet does not argue with darkness. It accepts the shadow and carries on. Accept the shadow of closed eyes in the same spirit. Light will come again. For now, your best work is to let muscle after muscle reduce its holding. The back of the tongue settles against the roof of the mouth and then slides down into a resting place. The jaw hangs with a slim gap between teeth. The shoulders rest against what supports them, which is now a kind partner doing the only heavy lifting required. The legs are free to be still. The hands have nothing to hold. The face forgets expression. The breath takes a shape that matches the orbit, longer on the way out than on the way in. There will be more visitors. New names will be written in the sky. A child will wake before dawn and see a pale fan and remember it for a lifetime. A scientist will read a set of lines in a spectrum and be grateful for a page that arrived from a world the size of a town. A person who has had a long day will step outside, notice a faint streak, and return indoors calmer than before. You are that person tonight, even if you are indoors and the streak is only in your thoughts. The effect is the same. The nervous system reads the sky's pace and slows to match. If sleep is already near, let it take you the way a comet's shadow takes the surface at local sunset. The change is gradual and complete. If sleep is a few minutes away, keep company with the traveler as it passes beyond the orbit of Mars, then Jupiter, then the space where dark is almost everything. With each larger circle passed, your muscles remember how little they need to do. The brain alights on fewer branches. The story becomes quiet enough to carry you without words. When the visitor reaches aphelion, the far point, it is as far from the sun as its path allows. The speed is at its minimum. The state is not empty. It is potential. The next return is written into the orbit. The world holds its place for as long as it needs. Let this be your final cue. Hold your place without effort. The next return of wakefulness is already written into your day. You do not have to summon it, for now there is this wide, steady quiet. Thank you for walking this path through comets. Thank you for lending your attention to a story made of ice, dust, sunlight, and time. Keep the simplest part with you as you go. A small heart turns. A faint veil grows and fades. A long line points outward. You are allowed to rest in the same shape. The head of the story is dark and calm. The tail is a last sigh that leaves the body light. Sleep is the deep sky ahead. Let the visitor lead you there, and let the night hold you as you go.